President Volodymyr Zelenskyy said Ukraine has managed to shift global attention back from Greenland to the war in Ukraine. He made the remarks while speaking with a journalist during his visit to the World Economic Forum in Davos. Zelenskyy said that at the start of the forum, most questions were focused on Greenland, even as Ukraine continues to live under the reality of a full-scale war. He stressed that these two issues are not comparable and that anyone can see the difference between the level of threats involved. According to the president, the focus has now returned to Ukraine, which he described as critically important for Kyiv. He also urged European leaders to move faster in making decisions on increasing pressure on Russia, particularly when it comes to sanctions. While thanking partners for the support packages already approved, Zelenskyy pointed out that sanctions against Russia's nuclear sector have not yet been imposed. He specifically mentioned that there are still no restrictions targeting Rosatom or related individuals and entities. Earlier, the Financial Times reported that an announcement of an economic development plan worth around $800 billion to be coordinated by Ukraine, Europe and the United States had been planned in Davos. However, the focus on Greenland, the paper said, delayed that process. Politico also wrote that the controversy around Greenland shifted attention away from the war in Ukraine, noting that European leaders risk becoming absorbed in hypothetical scenarios. In contrast, a real war continues in the heart of Europe. Never before in the history of Ukraine's relations with NATO has there been so little opposition to its membership in the alliance. This was stated by Alona Hedmanchuk, head of Ukraine's mission to NATO. She said that while full consensus among all NATO members on inviting Ukraine has not yet been reached, the overall trend is clearly shifting in Ukraine's favor. The circle of countries opposing Ukraine's membership is gradually narrowing, and she highlighted the change in position of key states such as France and Germany as especially significant. Earlier, NATO Secretary General Mark Rutte said that the United States, Hungary, Slovakia and several other countries remain among those opposed to Ukraine's accession. At the same time, Ukrainians have begun to place less faith in NATO membership as the ultimate security guarantee, particularly in response to signals from some international partners. Meanwhile, NATO continues to work on security guarantees for Ukraine, aimed at preventing any renewed Russian aggression. Former US Ambassador to NATO, Kurt Volker, maintains that membership in the alliance remains the strongest and most reliable security guarantee in the world, and Ukraine could play a key role in building a future united European army, as Europe cannot do without the real battlefield experience of Ukrainian forces. President Volodymyr Zelenskyy said Russia plans to expand its army to 3.5 million troops by 2030, many of them with combat experience. He argued that Ukraine's military could become the backbone of any future European force, pointing to Kyiv's role in testing Western weapons and developing new generation drones in real combat. Zelenskyy warned that Ukraine has acted as a red light slowing Russia's military machine, but said this cannot continue without sustained support from Europe and its partners. In the Kremlin, Donald Trump's special envoy Steve Witkoff and his son-in-law Jared Kushner met with the Russian dictator Putin in what has become one of the most visible diplomatic contacts in recent weeks. As talks grow, the negotiations may be entering a final stage, as they say. The US side has not disclosed details, but the very fact of the meeting sent a clear signal that Washington is testing whether the Kremlin is ready to discuss real parameters for ending the war, not just temporary pause. At the same time, President Zelenskyy said the 2 days of trilateral meeting involving Ukraine, the United States and Russia are set to take place in the United Arab Emirates. Officials in Kyiv say draft documents for a possible peace deal are almost ready. Trump's envoy Steve Witkoff speaks of talks being at a final stage, and yet Russia's publicly stated war goals have not changed since 2022. This is what fuels the central question. Is this a real move towards peace or an effort to buy time? Against this job, Donald Trump, speaking to reporters aboard his plane on the way back from Davos, talked about his meeting with President Zelenskyy and the war more broadly. Despite years of Russian aggression and thousands of victims, Trump continues to describe Vladimir Putin as a rational political actor, someone capable of negotiations, a deal, and ultimately of stopping the killing. He said he believes the moment may now be approaching when both sides are ready to talk.
And you know, what's happened here is there were times when Putin didn't want to make a deal, times when Zelenskyy didn't want to make a deal, and it was like opposite times. Now I think they both want to make a deal, but we'll find out.
France's Navy has intercepted an oil tanker in the Mediterranean that departed from Russia. The operation was carried out with the support of allies, and French officials say the vessel may be part of the so-called shadow fleet used by Moscow to bypass international sanctions. According to official information, the tanker sailed from a port in northern Russia, and European authorities suspect may have been operating under false flag to conceal its origin. President Emmanuel Macron said the operation was conducted in line with international maritime law and in coordination with partners. He added that such vessels play a key role in financing Russia's war against Ukraine by allowing oil exports to continue despite Western restrictions. In Europe, the move is seen as a signal that oversight of the shadow fleet is tightening. Analysts say that it is through these tankers that Russia preserves a significant share of its oil revenues, which helps sustain its economy and military capabilities. A new security axis is taking shape in Europe. Germany and Italy are moving closer as tensions grow with France and uncertainty deepens in transatlantic relations. German Chancellor Friedrich Merz and Italian Prime Minister Giorgia Meloni are preparing for a joint defense summit that could mark a new political partnership inside the European Union. According to Politico, Berlin now sees Rome as a reliable ally on defense industry and relations with the United States. The two sides are expected to sign cooperation agreements in the defense sector. German arms maker Rheinmetall and Italy's Leonardo already work together on tanks and military equipment, and more joint projects may follow. Their growing alignment comes against a backdrop of strained ties with French President Emmanuel Macron. Berlin has been frustrated by Paris' stance on a major trade deal with South America and disputes over a large European fighter jet program. Rome, meanwhile, has had its own long-running political tensions with Macron. Merz and Meloni are also united by a desire to cool relations with Donald Trump and to strengthen Europe's role as a more independent global player. They are preparing a joint plan to revive European industry and boost exports, which they plan to present at the next European Council summit. Still, differences remain. Meloni has not supported Merz's idea of using frozen Russian assets to help fund military aid to Ukraine. She also pushed for concessions for Italian farmers in trade talks with South America. The two leaders also diverge on fiscal policy and the scale of a defense spending. Analysts say this partnership could shift the balance of power in Europe. France is launching talks with the G7 as well as countries from Northern Europe and the Baltic region to coordinate support for Ukraine's energy system, which continues to come under Russian missile and drone attacks. French Foreign Minister said that partners will discuss additional steps to help Ukraine keep its power system running through the winter. He also said France will provide an additional 13 megawatts of electricity and around 100 generators to help replace damaged infrastructure. He added that other countries are expected to announce new support measures during the call. Poland is also sending urgent additional aid. By decision of Prime Minister Donald Tusk, 379 electricity generators and 18 heaters from the country's Strategic Reserves Agency will be delivered to Ukraine in the coming days, according to Poland's Interior Ministry. Other partners are stepping in as well. The Netherlands has urgently allocated 23 million euros for Ukraine's energy support, while Denmark has pledged an additional 20 million euros. Azerbaijan has sent 5 transformers, generators, and other energy equipment to help stabilize Ukraine's power system. The United States is discussing a plan that would limit Russia's and China's access to mining activities in Greenland and strengthen NATO's presence in the Arctic, according to the New York Times, citing senior Western security and diplomatic officials. The talks are focused on several key ideas, including the creation of a new NATO mission in the Arctic, granting the United States sovereign rights over parts of Greenland's territory, and blocking potentially hostile powers from developing the island's natural resources. These elements outline the contours of a possible compromise that President Donald Trump announced earlier this week without providing details. Officials say the move has at least temporarily eased tensions between the United States and Europe over Greenland, which is formerly a territory of Denmark. At the same time, sources stress that the proposal do not involve transferring ownership of all of Greenland from Denmark to the United States. Many of the details, they say, remain unresolved, and it is unclear whether the talks will lead to a formal agreement. Denmark has publicly stated not only once that Greenland is not for sale and may not support the proposed plans. US and European officials say they are trying to address Washington's security concerns about Russia and China in the Arctic while respecting Europe's red line on Greenland's sovereignty. One of the key proposals includes the creation of a new NATO mission that called Arctic Sentry. Officials say it would be modeled on similar NATO mission in the Baltic region and Eastern Europe, aimed at countering what they describe as Russia's increasingly assertive behavior in the Arctic. That's all for now. For more content, please subscribe.